Hi, I'm Dr. Lenne Hunt with the Marriage Recovery Center, and if you're watching this video, it's probably because you've got a friend or family member who asked you to. They are trusting me to tell you some things that they really want you to know, that they've struggled to tell you. And this has to do with their relationship, with their marriage. The difficulty is that what you hear might surprise you, might even shock you. They're worried that you won't believe them. They're worried that even if you believe them, you might somehow blame them. And so they've asked me to talk with you. So, the issue in your friend or family member's marriage is emotional abuse. And it may or may not have some narcissistic overtones attached to it. I know those are pretty big words to use. So let me explain what I mean. Emotional abuse is, broadly speaking, one person's desire to manipulate or control another for their benefit. And it's at the expense of the partner they're manipulating or controlling. There are a series of typical tactics that are used as part of this. It can be very overt stuff, like yelling, name-calling, raging, physical intimidation, belittling. Things that are easy to hear, things that are clear to know are wrong when you hear them, when you encounter them. The problem is that you may not be privy to that in your friend or family member's relationship. Because a good part of emotional abuse is that it's hidden. We're talking about behaviors that tend not to happen in public, although they can. But generally speaking, these are things that happen behind closed doors at home and may stand very much in contrast to how the person shows up in public, in their work life, with their friends, at the gym, in the store, at church. And so that's part of your friend or family member's concern about talking with you. They're afraid you won't believe them, because what they want to tell you might stand very much in contrast with your experience of their spouse. They're also afraid that if you believe them, that you might blame them or hold them accountable some way for the really hurtful dynamics that are going on. So again, I'm here to try to clarify some of that for you. I said earlier that emotional abuse can show up in very overt ways, ways that are easy to see and to hear. But that isn't always the case. There's also a covert form of emotional abuse, much harder to see, much harder to put words to describe. Partly it has to do with the absence of things and not just the presence of things. So, for example, the absence of emotional availability. And that can happen a couple of different ways. For some people, it comes through very passive-aggressive techniques, like the silent treatment, or just sort of disappearing conversationally, disappearing relationally for days on end. But it also shows up in various means of controlling behavior. For example, a person who is determined to get their own way about decisions, and so simply persists and persists and persists in giving their opinion, in saying what they think needs to be done, in a very harassing, unending sort of way, so that their partner, finally out of exhaustion, out of being tired of the conflict, just gives in. They wear them down. Sometimes the covert elements are about hidden behaviors, addictions, areas of their life together where one partner engages in deception. It could be about affairs they have. It could be about habits they have. It could be about the way they spend their money. You often find in emotionally abusive relationships that there is financial abuse going on as well. One person controlling the money or controlling how it's spent. It could be direct control, like not giving the partner access to accounts, but it could also be more coercive kind of control, like demanding detailed explanation for every penny spent so that the partner feels uncomfortable spending money, feels uncomfortable asking for anything. The coercion could show up in their sex life, feeling pressured to engage in sexual behavior when they don't want to, and knowing that if they say no, there are consequences that they'll pay. The consequences could be as simple as their partner pouting or again reverting to the silent treatment. But it could be worse than that. It could be retributive behavior, paying them back in some way. It could be days of moodiness and grumpiness and snarliness that simply, again, wears them down. Now, again, I realize that these are probably not things that you are privy to in your friend or family member's relationship. Why should you be, right? They tend to be private things. But just because they're private doesn't mean they're not true. And that leads me to one of the hardest things to explain about emotional abuse. It's the most confusing part, which is that these are marriages which aren't all bad. The one with the problematic behavior isn't a thorough monster 100% of the time. There are moments of good. There are moments of kind, of warm, of companionable. But the problem is that those moments of good sit right alongside really bad behavior. Things that shouldn't be able to go together, go together. They coexist, and that shouldn't be possible. And so their spouse doesn't know what to think. They don't know what's real. They don't know what's true. Is it the kind, loving, patient one? Or is it the raging, hidden, silent, coercive one? Life feels chaotic. And so they walk on eggshells because they never know which version of their spouse they're going to get. Is this going to be the one that hurts them? The one that uses their vulnerability against them? Or is it the one that in public looks so encouraging and applauding of who they are, that publicly tells people what a good spouse they are, how lucky they are to be married? Is this going to be the person that's responsible in their work life? Generous toward their friends at church? Or is this the one who at home doesn't want to participate and makes their partner responsible for everything? Is this the one who in public, with their boss, with their coworkers, with their employees, speaks appropriately, kindly even, who measures their words, who chooses carefully what kind of language to use, but at home uses words that would peel the skin off your body? Cruel words, hateful words, accusatory words. The stories I hear are really hard. Stories of these people who in part of their life show up so well, And literally, in the very next breath, in the parking lot of the bank, they're pitching fits and throwing tantrums. They're physically intimidating. They're demanding. They're cruel. That's the confusion. What's true? What's real? Which is why your friend or family member has probably stayed in the relationship for so long. Nobody goes into marriage expecting divorce. Nobody goes into marriage wanting one. They love their partner for a reason. Once upon a time, they saw something good and glorious in them, something that drew their heart to them. And they want to believe that that person is real, that it wasn't just a sham, that that person is real and that that person is still in there somewhere. And so they wait and they hope and they try and they walk on eggshells and they twist themselves into 1,000 shapes, trying to help, trying not to trigger bad behavior, trying to somehow get it right. Except that they can't. The problem isn't in their delivery, it's not in their word choice. The problem is in their partner's dysregulated emotions, their failure to harness their emotion to love. And getting angry isn't the problem. We all get angry. There's nothing wrong with anger, unless. And the unless is you don't control it. Unless you administer it poorly. Unless you allow it to spill over into rage or retaliation or calculated harm. Not so good then. And that's sort of been the story in your friend or family member's marriage. Their partner gives themselves permission to treat your friend or family member in a way that they don't treat anybody else. Much more cruelly, much more unkindly, much more manipulatively. It's a hard way to live. And year after year after year, it begins to take a toll. It shows up in stress effects, in depression, in anxiety, in the body's breakdown. Maybe sleep is compromised, maybe their body's begun to show some of the wear and tear of their autonomic nervous system being turned on for too long, living out of fight and flight and freeze and fawn. Maybe their blood pressure is up, or their blood sugar. Maybe their immune system is compromised now because of what they're living under. It can go that way for a long time. And in the beginning, part of why they stay is because they don't know what it is. They don't know what to call it. They may have heard of things like gaslighting or blame shifting. But until they know how to apply that to their own situation, they're likely to call it other things. It's important to know what to call it, because that leads to different kinds of choices. And so your friend or family member is probably struggling with what to do about their relationship, whether to stay, whether to separate, whether to end it. It's an agonizing decision because they may still love their partner. Maybe they have children together. They want to hope. They want hope to be justified. But it may not be.